It's the year 2030 and congratulations are in order. Your career as a strategy executive has progressed so well that you're now the CEO of Anti-Gravity Ventures. AGV is a flying car startup with big ambitions. The Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA in the United States, has recently approved the usage of fully autonomous, that is, flying without a pilot, electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, or eVTOLs, for use in commuting, air taxis, and recreation. This has opened up an entirely new way for people to get around and is set to revolutionize medium-distance personal transportation. Your company is poised for potential success, but unfortunately, you'll be competing with quite a few other companies for competitive superiority in the eVTOL industry. Winners can expect large profits and media attention, but losers will quietly declare bankruptcy, sell what is left of their assets, and start looking for new jobs. This video is divided up into the following 5 parts: industry background, starting resources, gameplay information, sample gameplay, and hints, tricks, and tips. The term flying car, while fun and whimsical sounding, is technically incorrect with respect to vehicles being produced today. Flying cars did exist, but the technology required for both road driving and flying was always unwieldy and not ready for wide public usage. In the late 2000s and early 2010s, the logic of how personal flight might be conducted changed. Instead of creating a car that could drive on roads and fly to destinations, engineers began to look at the principles underpinning the type of multi-rotor flight on simple, electric-powered drones. Drones use flight principles more similar to those of a helicopter by taking off and landing vertically. This change in logic created a startup boom for building eVTOLs that are all-electric, safe, and capable of autonomous, that is, pilotless flight. Between 2010 and 2022, more than 100 companies entered the market and began developing eVTOLs, including well-known brands such as Boeing, Airbus, and Honda, and new startups such as Jensen One, Joby, and eHang. As of 2022, the technology used in eVTOL prototypes looked a lot more like the technology used in drones. For example, both eHang and SureFly use 8 rotors mounted on 4 stability bars. Volocopter uses 20 microblades to mimic the look of a helicopter, and the futuristic Flargo uses tiltable propellers and a static wing design. But you don't need to get hung up on the specifics of these technologies. This is a business strategy simulation, not a technology or product design simulation. On to starting resources. Now, back to your company, Anti-Gravity Ventures, or AGV. It's now 2030. AGV will deliver your first 2 models of flying cars for sale this year. The sports model will seat 2 people and be appealing to those who want a fast and light eVTOL. The 6-seat family model will be slower, but it will be able to carry more people and cargo. Your analysts predict that the sporty and family market segments will have equal demand for new vehicles, and that market segment growth for both vehicle types will be roughly equal in future years. This is important to note. In other words, neither market segment is better than the other. Since all competitors start with the same eVTOL models, the same quality levels, and the same resources, every competitor in the simulation will start on equal footing. Players start with 3 other key resources. First, you will have a manufacturing facility capable of producing more than enough vehicles than you will be able to sell in the simulation, so you don't have to worry about any financial issues such as expanding your factory or constructing a new factory. The second resource is that the logistics of your manufacturing process, including assembly, labor management, and supply chain management, are all handled with 100% accuracy by an artificial intelligence program. This will free you up to focus exclusively on high-level strategy. And finally, you'll start with $1 million in cash. To recap, you'll start the simulation with 4 key resources: 2 production-ready eVTOL models, a factory capable of producing more than enough vehicles, an artificial intelligence software that handles all the company's operational details, and $1 million in cash. Gameplay information. Your primary duties as CEO of Anti-Gravity Ventures are to set a future strategy by guiding investments and setting prices for your 2 types of eVTOLs. When you make investments, you'll consider the following options. Number 1, you can invest in manufacturing efficiency. That is, making your factory more efficient. In other words, if you invest money here, you'll automate your factory, which will allow your employees to make your eVTOLs more efficiently, saving you labor and time. When you start the simulation, it will cost you $80,000 to build each vehicle. For every dollar you invest in manufacturing efficiency, you'll lower your cost of production on every future eVTOL. This effect is cumulative, so that if you invested more in subsequent years, it will further reduce the cost of production. Note that the sports and family models are always produced at the same price. Therefore, investment in manufacturing efficiency will lower the production cost of both types equally. The second thing you can invest in is marketing. Consider for a moment that automobile and SUV advertising is one of the most common forms of advertising in the United States. It serves to both promote sales and build a strong brand. For this simulation, marketing has similar effects. In other words, investing in marketing makes both of your car types more appealing to customers. That is, marketing applies to both sporty and family vehicles. Since marketing helps with both direct sales and long-term branding, investments in marketing will have a strong but more short-term impact than investments in manufacturing or product R&D. The effect of marketing investments are cumulative, but marketing effects on customers are likely to be of a more short to medium-term nature. The third thing that you can invest in is making your eVTOLs higher quality. This is called product R&D in the simulation. This allows you to invest in research and development to make a higher quality vehicle. Your car will be more appealing to consumers, and it may even allow your vehicle to win recognition for quality from reputable sources such as journalists or product review online magazines. The more money you invest in R&D, the more features and capabilities that you will add to your vehicle. Again, the simulation isn't focused on the actual technology underlying eVTOLs, and it doesn't break out any specific advances, but for conceptual purposes, you can think about building longer battery life, faster flying speeds, or even a sweet stereo for that futuristic music. Please note that unlike manufacturing and marketing, R&D investments only apply directly to the eVTOL category that you choose. In other words, if you invest in sporty R&D, this investment improves sports car quality, but not family eVTOL quality. Of course, you are free to invest in either, both, or neither of these product categories. You'll see more on this in just a moment. To sum up, when you invest in R&D, you increase the quality of your vehicles, which makes them more appealing to customers. Investments in R&D are cumulative such that your eVTOL becomes even more appealing over time when you invest further in R&D. All of the above investment options can be used effectively in the simulation. In other words, there are no trick or gotcha investment categories. They're meant to mimic the effect of real-world investment activities in high-tech consumer products. While there aren't any bad investments, the most critical part of doing well in your simulation is optimizing your investments based on your strategy, as well as understanding and reacting to the strategies of your competitors. And of course, as your final strategic decision, you control pricing for both of your products. Here are some quick guidelines on pricing. At the beginning of the game, it will cost you $80,000 to produce each vehicle, both sports and family. The suggested initial starting price for each vehicle is $100,000. You can price each of your cars independently, so depending on your strategy, it may make sense for the price of one of your eVTOL models to be above or below the price of the other. It would seem unwise to ever price your car below your starting marginal cost or current marginal cost of production. That said, I encourage you to do your own analysis, linking your strategy, your pricing, and your expected sales and gross margin. More on that in the last section. Section 4, Sample Gameplay. The simulation operates in the following steps. You'll get a link to the game. When you get there, you'll enter your name, and then your instructor will give you a game code, and you'll enter the game heads-up display. And here you'll see the first step is entering your investments. So you'll enter your investments under year 1 here, and these are the 4 categories: manufacturing efficiency, marketing, R&D for sporty, and R&D for family that we discussed in the previous section. Since you start off with $1 million, I'm going to make a very naive strategy, and I'm going to just enter a quarter of that in each space. I don't recommend playing this way, but it is exactly that, a naive strategy. Because I'm investing a bit in manufacturing efficiency, I think my price might go down a little bit. My cost might go down. So I'm going to set this at $90 $99,000. Let's do 98,500, just so that we're guaranteed to be unique. $98,500. And then down here at the bottom, once you've entered, it's very important to check this box. Check when ready to advance to next year. This allows the game to move forward. If you don't do this, your instructor may force the game forward. And if that happens, any information you've inputted on the screen will go away. It'll be deleted, and instead it'll be replaced with 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and a very high sale price, $120,000. So more or less, you're guaranteed not to get any sales. So please pay attention to the pace of the game with your instructor, and enter your information reasonably quickly, and check when ready to advance as soon as possible. So in this little simulation, I'm playing with 4 fake players. So let me make sure that they are all set up. There we go. Yep. So everybody entered their information. And now this brings us to our wrap-up screen. So this is the results from year 1. We're now on year 2. And in fact, we can see the same input information for year 2 here. But I'm going to walk us through the intel, the data that we get at the end of each year. So this here on the left-hand side is our data. This is data that's only available to us. Only we know the specifics of our company. So first, we saw that we invested some money in manufacturing cost, and our price to produce, or cost to produce, went down a bit, about $500. And here we have a scale. It's a scale starting at 100%, and it tells us the specific amount of quality that we've invested in. So for marketing, we've invested $250,000, and we've made our marketing score go up a bit. This is just, again, it starts at 100%. That means that we've made our marketing better by at least 1%. And then this number for R&D is 2% for each of the R&D categories. We sold 50 cars, sporty, and 53 family. We have a market share amount. This tells us what our percentage is relative to the market, and the market share of the cars that we've sold overall. And then we've got our revenues. We've got our expenses. So remember that we spent $1 million. We spent our entire $1 million allocation, so our expenses show up as $1 million. Whew. Okay, the math works here. And then it tells us our COGS, the cost of goods sold, the cost to produce our vehicles, independent of our other expenses like R&D, marketing, and manufacturing. And that was $8,191,000. As you can see up here, we got in a total of $10 million in revenue. And so we have a gross margin of $1,900,000 and a profit of $900,000. So less our gross margin, less our expenses for R&D, marketing, and efficiency. And so this leaves us with $1,993,000, our profit plus our starting cash. And then we this information here in this last section is just as a reminder, so that you know what you entered. So last year you entered $98,500 for your sale price, and then you put in $250,000 for each of your categories. So this bottom section is really just a reminder of the information you inputted from last year. This might be good information to have. On the right-hand side, we've got these pretty colorful little charts that are called market intel. This is the information that is available to everyone. So this is the publicly available information. Now imagine if you're running an eVTOL company, you could go down to your competitors' stores, showrooms, and see what they're producing. You could get a sense for how many cars that they're selling. That's likely to be reported publicly, even if they're a private company. Companies are proud of that information usually. So you can see how many vehicles were sold in each category. And here, player 2 was the winner for sporty, and player 1 was the winner for family. Let's see why that is. I have some guesses. It'll tell you the total revenue by player, and it tells you the price that people had last year. So player 1, as we can tell, they had the most revenue, and they lowered their price to $95,000. We lowered our price to $98,500. Player 3, $99,000, and player 2 left it at $100,000. So now it doesn't tell you profit. You don't have that kind of information, but you can take a guess. If someone really cuts their prices, you can guess that they're not making a big profit because their gross margin is quite low. So the quality ratings are here at the bottom, and these are essentially ratings out of 10. And you can imagine that in the same way that for cars, a magazine will rate, like Consumer Reports will rate the quality of a car, the same thing will happen here, and that magazines and Instagram influencers and whoever's making these pronouncements will say, hey, this car is cool. This car met quality ratings, and these reflect whether or not players invested in quality. So we can see that player 2 invested a lot because they went from 0 all the way up to 3 in sporty quality. And let me guess, if we look at vehicles sold, yep, player 2 sold the most sporty vehicles. So they invested in sporty and sold the most sporty vehicles. Player 3 seems to have invested in family, but maybe not as much because they only scored a quality ranking of 1, and everyone else is not on the board. They still have a quality ranking of 0. So this will give you some insight into the strategies that your competitors are using. You won't really get any information on branding. That's working in the background, and you won't get any information on their manufacturing costs per vehicle. That's information that's private as well. So you'll have to use your wits and estimate what your competitors are doing. And that brings us to the last part of section 4. I promised I'd discuss how you win the simulation. The goal of the simulation isn't accomplishing a simple buzzword like get the most market share. Instead, the goal is to build the highest quality company with the most financial value. In other words, the winning company is the one that we would expect to sell a lot of cars going forward at a reasonable or high profit margin. To make this more realistic, the company is valued at the end of the final year by taking into consideration a number of factors, both your existing resources and levels of profitability. The calculation will include things like resources that you've developed through your investments, your current profitability, and your realized gross margins. This will give you a holistic value that you can't gain easily by changing your strategy in the final year. The last section is hints, tricks, and tips. As a wrap-up to this video, I'm going to give you a few final thoughts, hints, and tips. First, a note of caution. Even though this is a high-tech industry and you've managed to secure financing for a new factory and $1 million in cash, that is it. There is no other money out there for you. There is no one sitting around waiting to bail you out if you get into financial trouble. I mean, honestly, no one lends to a failing technology company in a highly competitive market. So if you lose your money, that's it. You stay in the game, but without cash, you won't be able to make investments, and you'll just limp along until you return to profitability or the game ends. So please be careful. Number 2, this is a new industry. There won't really be any customer loyalty, so don't bank on that. If you want customer loyalty, you have to build it with your customers by investing in creating eVTOLs with the highest perceived and real value to your customers. Number 3, on average, each competitor will sell about 50 cars in the first round. Number 4, just like in the real world, customers have a broad variety of preferences. Some prefer low cost, some prefer product quality, and some prefer brand value. All customers will have a different combination of these preferences. Number 5, there's no lag between when you make investments and when they are realized in the simulation. In other words, all investments are realized in the year in which they are made. They're made, and then they immediately occur and affect the outcome of that year. This is a fast-growing market. You should expect annual growth anywhere from 5 to 15% year over year, and the game will typically last between 7 and 10 years, depending on your instructor's preferences. This means that the financial opportunity at the end of the game is far greater than the financial opportunity available at the beginning. Number 7, the number of competitors that you face in your simulation will affect how you determine your strategy. Without doing your analytical work for you, that's why you're doing the simulation, I will say that a simulation with 6 competitors is going to be a completely different experience than a simulation with 20 competitors. Strategies that would work with 6 would never work with 20, and possibly vice versa. Number 8, consider your options wisely based on both common sense and the strategy principles that you've been studying in your business classes. This simulation uses principles from classic strategy ideas such as competitive advantage or any of Michael Porter's foundational articles. We'll discuss this more in the wrap-up after the simulation. Number 9, be sure to strategize for the whole game. The first couple rounds may be turbulent as there's a bit of a shakeout, but stay focused on your strategy, stay focused on the long run of the simulation. Thanks for your time and attention. I hope you're excited about the Flying Car eVTOL simulation. Have a great learning experience, and thank you for watching.